Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief in so many ways. Welcome also to this annual celebration of the solstice, the winter solstice. We're doing it differently this year than we have in past years because of COVID. But we will still be joyful, we will still be celebrating the solstice, and we still have some very familiar elements ready for you. This is a challenging day for us. Our sound system is cutting in and out, and we know it. So bear with us, because we're going to weather that through the service as best we can. We also found out this morning that our dear interim music director, Jeff Ballard, is positive for COVID. So he's not going to be joining us this morning or at Christmas Eve. But we are likewise rolling with that and have plans already in place to cover all of that. So
make sure we send Jeff our very best thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery. He is feeling sick, but not terrible. And he was so anguished not to be able to be here with us this morning. So, this is the day we have been given. May we make the very most of it, starting now, together.
Good morning. Please join me in the unison words for our chalice lighting. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path toward harmony, justice, and hope for all.
Thank you to Nancy Nicholson, who's our musician in the loft today. Here we are, a congregation of children, youth, and adults, together physically and digitally, to celebrate the shortest day, the longest night, the winter solstice, Tuesday, December 21st in the Northern Hemisphere. Our first year tradition of honoring the darkest season continues, as Liz said, even as we acknowledge the challenges, hardships, and joys of these times we are navigating. There are valuable lessons from the natural world when we pay attention. We invite you now to lean into this chilly season in this beloved community, beginning with some words from Stephanie Noble. Do not be afraid of the darkness. Dark is the rich, fertile earth that cradles the seed, nourishing growth. Dark is the soft night that cradles us to rest. Only in darkness can stars shine across the vastness of space. Only in darkness is the moon's dance so clear. There is mystery woven in the dark, quiet hours. There is magic in the darkness. Do not be afraid. We are born of this magic. It fills our dreams that root, unravel, and reweave themselves in the shelter of the deep, dark night. The dark has its own hue, its own resonance, its own breath. It fills our soul, not with despair, but with promise. May our worship this morning inspire that promise for all.
Which brings us to our time of greeting, our chance to say hello to dear friends, brand newcomers to our eyes who are gathered here for our service this morning. So I invite you now to stand if you are able, and lift yourselves or just your arms and hands, turn around and wave, say hi to people sitting near you, people all the way across the meeting house. There's young people with us today that it's really awesome to see. Children and youth from our Spiritual Pathways program are here. Hi kids, hi youth. And then let's also turn and greet everybody who we know is with us at home. Michael, can you wave over the camera right there? Maybe Jeff is there too. Hi Jeff, we're doing okay. Hi to everybody who's joining us from home. It is so good to see you, even this way, and to be seen by you. It is so good to be together in all the ways we are. Roger's going to get the book, so I'll just stall while he's going. And say I was going to thank her at the end, but Kathy pointed out that our own wonderful member, Nancy Nicholson, Nancy, you want to wave to all the people, stepped in with like a half an hour's notice to do the keyboards for us this morning. Longtime attendee and member Nancy Nicholson. Thank you so much, Nancy, for doing that. And while we're talking about that, also Beth Armstrong has stepped in to do the choir rehearsal for Christmas Eve. The choir is going to be rehearsing today after our services, so go ahead and meet up as planned with Beth Armstrong to lead you in our rehearsal. So thank you very, very much. Yeah, we should clap.
Good job. Here are this week's joys and sorrows. I'm thankful for the neighborhood cookie exchanges, gingerbread house decorating, and being able to get together with family and friends. Indeed, it is the season. And a candle of joy and great celebration for Carolyn Decker. Carolyn has completed her master's thesis at URI on the conservation of hatchling diamondback terrapins in Rhode Island. With special thanks, she notes, to her Chalice Circle for all of their support. And I offer one final candle this morning for all of those candles that remain unspoken, those things we are carrying in our hearts this holiday season. And for today's meditation, it's going to be responsive. I have 3 simple words for you. Ready? Winter, teach us. That was really good. With a little conviction. One more time. Oh, I love you so much. I adapted these words from the original. I believe they're from Rebecca Parker. Before we begin, I want to invite you to relax and enter into the spirit of prayer and meditation. Let your bodies relax and feel yourselves sitting where you are. Drop your shoulders. Look at things in a soft gaze. Please take a deep breath with me. And again. And one more. Say with me, winter, teach us. As the world around us slows down, teach us stillness. As a mother shields her children from the cold, teach us to care. Winter, teach us. As the ground beneath us is covered in ice, teach us courage. As the wild creatures hibernate, teach us to rest. As the sun shines brightly on newly fallen snow, teach us wonder. As the sky recedes into deeper blues and grays, teach us humility. As white snowy silence blankets us, teach us faith. As we wait for warmth and growth, teach us patience. As we embrace the seasons and ourselves, teach us love. As we watch and feel the winds of change, teach us harmony. Yes, winter, teach us anew. Amen.
it is one of the joys of my season to introduce my friend, Len Cabral. Lenny and his wife Judy are Unitarian Universalists and longtime members of this congregation. Their two wonderful daughters, Nuela and Liana, grew up in this church. Lenny is an internationally known storyteller, beloved in our community and way beyond. We are so grateful, Len, that you're here with us to share this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Darkness ain't so bad. Darkness has us moving slowly. It slows us down. Darkness has us moving carefully. Darkness improves our listening. All of a sudden we hear that night train passing by, or the barn owl saying, who cooks for you? Darkness prepares us. They say the dark before the storm. It prepares us. Who among us doesn't like dark chocolate or the darkest cherries? My mother would say, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Or she would also say, oh, you have such beautiful dark brown eyes, not to mention tall, dark, and handsome. The reason it said the morning is wiser than the evening is because in the night, in the dark, when we sleep, our subconscious works to help us get through our problems that we're facing before we lie down. So that's why the morning is wiser than the evening. They also say that long ago, the earth was covered with darkness. It was always dark. And the animals, they had a rough way to go because they couldn't see where they were going. They'd bump into one another. Birds would fly into trees. Fish would swim ashore. It was a problem. They decided to get together and see if they could solve this problem. So they called all the animals together, all of them together. So we have to have this meeting. And one animal said, oh, I know a field. It's a big wide open field. We can all meet in that field. Another animal said, yes, but we should do it with trees around that field. So those that live up in the trees will feel safe and they'll come to this meeting. And another animal said, oh yeah, I know a meadow. It's surrounded by trees. We can go there. And then another animal said, yes, but we should do it where the rivers and the waters pass by that meadow. So the animals that live in the rivers of the world, they can come to this meeting too, because we're going to need everybody's help. So they called forth for all the animals. Oh, and they all came. The rhinoceros was there, the wildebeest, the elk, the deer, the giraffe. He was tall, so he was way in the back. The turtle was there. Took a long time to get, but he got there. He came, and the snail was on his back, and the snail said, whee! So all the animals got there, and the skunk was there. He was sitting all by himself. The rhinoceros all were there, and they all started talking about this problem of darkness and what should be done about it. And they talked about this and that and this and that, and then someone said something about light being the opposite of dark. And maybe a little light would help. And the talk went on like that for a while, and then finally the bear stood up. Now the bear was one of the largest animals and most ferocious of the animals, and he felt what he would have to say would weigh the most. So he wanted to speak last. The bear stood up, walked into the center of the circle, and the bear said, we must have darkness. We must have darkness. As far as the bear was concerned, that was it. End of conversation, everybody go home. And the bear started to walk out of that circle, and a little voice way in the back, way behind the giraffe, because the giraffe was so tall, he was in the back. Behind the giraffe, a little voice said, let there be light. Let there be light. The bear was a bit taken back that somebody spoke after he spoke. The bear walked back into the center of the circle and said, we must have darkness. We must have darkness. And he started to walk in that circle once again when that little voice way in the back said, "Let there be light, let there..." Right away the bear looked at Coyote, because Coyote's always doing tricky things like that. Wasn't Coyote. Wasn't the skunk who was still sitting all by himself. Wasn't the giraffe. Looked down at the turtle. Wasn't a turtle, and the snail was still saying, "Wow." And the bear said, "We must have darkness." And he started to walk in that circle once again when that voice way in the back said, the bear pushed the moose out the way, tipped over the cow, moved the rhinoceros and the unicorn. And he said, "We must have darkness. We must have darkness." And that voice in the back said, and the birds up in the tree, the owl, the hawk, the raven, the blue jay, they noticed it first at the horizon where the earth meets the sky. Sometimes we call it the crack of dawn or the break of morn. Just the light started to peer through. It became an amber, like your shirt. Then it became a blue. And the bird saw it, and the bird said, "The light is coming, the light is coming." And the bear said, "We must have darkness, we must have darkness." The light is coming, we must have darkness. And that voice in the back said, and the light started to spread across the gathering of animals. The bear could look and he could see who was calling forth the light. It was the smallest of the creatures. Isn't it always that way? It was the chipmunk. And the bear started to walk toward the chipmunk. The chipmunk noticed a redness in the bear's eyes. And the chipmunk thought it was best for her to skedaddle. And the chipmunk turned and started to run. It ran to the safety of its home in the stone wall where it lives till this day. And the bear gave chase. Now you might think, because a bear is big and burly, that he moves slowly. Not this bear. This bear moved like the wind. He ran through the clearing, pushing the elephant out of the way, the horse stepping over the dog, pushing the cat aside, chasing after the chipmunk. And the chipmunk was running. The bear jumped in the air, reached out with its mighty claws, and came down on the back of the chipmunk. But the chipmunk squeezed and squirmed and dug and squeezed and squirmed and dug and squeezed and squirmed and escaped into the safety of its home in the stone walls where it lives till this day, and the light spread across the earth. And ever since that day, we have light. And ever since that day, whenever you see a chipmunk scurry across your decks, skitter across the playground, hang out under the bird feeder. You see those markings on the chipmunk's back? You see them? They're put there by the bear. They're there to remind us that it was the littlest ones that said, thank you. A native friend sent this to me a while back, and I was looking through my desk this week, and I found it, and I thought, whoa, what timing to find this at this time. It's called Season of Dark and Season of Light. Dear ones, a brief heartfelt note as we end and begin again. Gratitude for each gift of hospitality, each friend and relation, each new landscape visited, each sweet return, each brief moment passing, each lingering talk, for good words, good hearts, and cherished silence together. Enough always enough. It's a joy and privilege to journey together. Warm peace regards. Thank you.
Man, I love that. It is a joy and a privilege to journey together. That is so true. I feel like that's what I say every week to all of us. Usually we hear a story from Len in the atrium building when we're moving around in our usual solstice service, and then you come into a space for something with me. Does anybody remember what we would have done in past years in the two parlors together? Joan? Yes, we would put cloves into clementines. How many people remember doing that in the meeting house sometime or other? How many of us would bring them home and use them on our mantles? Do you remember what they smelled like? Really tangy and sweet and spicy from the cloves. It's a very, very ancient kind of decoration that people have done, especially at this season of the year, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Usually we would make those decorations together and take them away as something that would fill our senses for the solstice season. And we can't do that this year, but what we have done is our wonderful office volunteers, who are also members of the congregation, spent hours and hours and hours this week filling individual bags with a clementine and a bunch of large cloves for you. So when you leave the service this morning, from either end, there's heaps of little bags. Each one has a clementine and a bunch of cloves for you to take home and do your own decoration at home. So we really hope everybody will take one bag per person in your party and bring them home and do them as soon as you get home, and you can have them to decorate your house that way, okay? Awesome, awesome. So in the meantime, instead of doing that, I'm sharing a reflection with you that was inspired by a line from the Bible. It's a line from the book of Job, and it's in your gray hymnal. It's number 424. So I'm going to ask us all to turn to our hymnals, look up in the back, reading number 424, way in the back. And I'm going to ask us all to rise in body or spirit as we are able when you're ready to read this together with me. Okay? And when everybody's mostly up, we'll get started on our reading. There's no rush. Take your time to find it. Number 424. It's from Job 38. Does everybody see it? Okay. Let's read together. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow? Or have you seen the treasuries of the hail? From whose womb did the ice come forth? And who has given birth to the hoarfrost of heaven? The waters become hard like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Ooh. So that's a little intimidating sounding to me. Am I the only one? All right. So that's, right, the dark of winter. And everything is dark and cold and hard, right? The air is hard. The very air is hard, along with the water. That's the way I used to think of winter always. I grew up in New England, and I was okay with winter. But it was really experiences that I had many years later that started to turn me around on it. And this is one of those experiences. It's a meditation I wrote years ago called Winter Lake. And I want to invite you, if you would be interested, to listen with your eyes closed. I know it's a little weird, sitting with your eyes closed in a large group of people, and you don't have to do it if that's a bridge too far. But you could give it a try, because this is a very descriptive reflection, and what I'm hoping is that you will join me there where I'm talking about. Okay? One crisp, frozen winter night, as a snowfall was drifting to its conclusion. We know what that looks like. Snow's falling and falling, and then it starts to get lighter, and then it's just a few flakes coming down gently. I walked with friends down from my old cottage in New York State to a nearby lake, and as those very last flakes wafted down, they fell from a sky of clear and darkest black. The stars shone in number and allure unparalleled. The lake was frozen solid and covered in fresh snow. It was a clear expanse of white, like a meadow of white, without even a branch to mar it. And we admired it. And then, of course, in human impulse irresistible, we marred it ourselves. We walked on water. We had come not to skate or laugh or cry out, not for any activity or experience I had ever had on ice before. We came in silence, and we walked out onto the lake, and we watched the wide night sky above. It was framed at the edges by the intricate patterns of snow-covered branches against the black sky. We bent down and we brushed the snow from the surface of the lake, and we saw the gleam of the ice and the blackness of the sky reflected in the blackness of the iced lake with the white snow all around. The air was cold and still. The midnight, midwinter woods were utterly silent. It was a landscape without color or sound, but it was filled not with bleakness, but with magic and mystery and intense, unprecedented beauty. This was not the lake I knew, that I mundanely jogged around and fished in, hiked near with my dog and cats. This was not even the nighttime woods I knew, which were full of insects and birds and snakes and sound, the rich smells of earth and fresh water and decaying leaves. This was the garden of night in the land of the Snow Queen, a place of clarity and cold and black and white, sky and land and water and peace, such as I had never beheld before. Not inimical, though there was no life apparent in it, and not empty, though it was so simple in its elements. It was as though the universe came down right there and touched our planet, and they merged, simple and eternal, though all would be changed there in minutes and hours by the life that was, in fact, everywhere concealed, protected, waiting. Perhaps part of the beauty that night was that we could choose it, choose to go out to the lake, choose when we were cold and tired to go back to the small house with its lights and the warm wood stove burning. If that is so, life is filled with such opportunities, moments of choice that bless us if we seize them, with miracle and beauty even in the very middle of a cold season. I have entered the storehouses of the snow, seen the treasuries of the hail, seen the ice birthed on the earth, lifted my face to the hoarfrost of heaven, walked on water, hard like stone, looked into the frozen deep. And it was good. Amen. Every week when it comes to the time for our offering, I think about what can center us in our giving and our gratitude and our generosity this week. And sometimes I try to think about it, plan it out, write it out in advance. Some weeks, increasingly, I don't. And I find that that offers me the chance to stay open to the wonderful gifts and celebrations that are possible when we don't plan everything out. And this week, for our offering, the thing that I would like to lift up to you as an opportunity for our gratitude and generosity and giving is the extraordinary capacities and resilience of this congregation, where when we find out about an hour before worship that our music director can't be here because of COVID, we're like, that's okay. We have multiple organists and pianists and keyboard players who are incredibly gifted and glad to share their gifts with our congregation, and we know them and they're present, and we will reach out to them and we know they will say yes, and someone does, and then they're right here and they're playing music for us like that. Because that's part of the incredible resource and gift and privilege that we get from coming together as a community. And we say, uh-oh, it's a few days before Christmas and we have the choir coming together to sing and practice for the first time for a live service in almost 2 years. What are we going to do? That's okay. We have choir directors who happen to be in our congregation and part of our choir, and they will say yes when we say, can you come with no notice and help lead the choir and get them ready to sing for the first time in almost 2 years at our Christmas Eve service? And they do, and they come, and they're here. This is part of the power and the beauty and the capacity that comes with being together in a faith community. There are countless ways that this is true. While I came in and was getting my COVID test this morning, there were people making sandwiches that will be going out as part of our food ministry for people who are food insecure later today. The power and capacities of this church, even just this morning, even just now, are beyond what we even can see and appreciate in one moment to the next in this one space. It's It's so wonderful. It's so good. It is all only made possible because of your presence, because of what you give, what you contribute, what you share with this congregation in being here together. Thank you so much for all that you give and all that you do and all that you are.
So this song has an om in it that you can hum. You can hum.
We have 3 invitations for you this morning. The first is about Christmas Eve. I've said this for the last few weeks, and it's still true. We are still excited and still planning to gather in person for Christmas Eve this year. There are 2 services. One is at 5, one is at 10, a little later than we have done them in the past years. The first service will have elements especially for children and families. The second service will have the traditional Christmas story from the Bible and readings. Both services will include special music and candle lighting. Come to the second service early to hear extra music. After the second service, the 10 o'clock service, the deacons are hosting an outside reception with hot mulled wine and cider outside on our lawn, and there will be masked caroling. Please note that our choir will be singing at both services for the first time in almost 2 years. Many protective protocols will be in place. We wanted to make sure you know that there will be people singing, masked, in the meeting house. The congregants will be humming. The choir will be singing. Because we still have, of course, COVID protocols in place, we have to limit the attendance in the meeting house to half the capacity. If you're coming, you have got to make a reservation, because we're going to have assigned seating to make sure that we're managing the different sizes of parties and stuff very, very carefully, especially with the rising levels of COVID in the state. You can't be a walk-in on Christmas Eve. You've got to make a reservation. If you think you want to come, make a reservation. All the choir singers and worship leaders will be fully vaccinated, and they will have been rapid tested that day to make sure that no one tests positive for COVID. We are also, because of those rising levels, asking all the attendees at worship to be caring and considerate enough of yourselves as well as each other to get rapid tested. You can get free rapid tests at state testing sites. There are many appointments available every day. You can also get a home test that you keep home with you and get tested that day before coming to services. So we're asking that in general now for coming to worship, but especially for Christmas Eve, please get tested before you come. We anticipate there will be a lot of people here, and we really, really, really want to keep people safe. We're hearing a lot about infection rates, including among many members now in our own congregation. So we've got to just redouble our care. Call the office to speak to a member of the front desk staff. They will gladly take your reservation information, and we hope to see each and every one of you at Christmas Eve. Second, there's an MLK celebration at 4 p.m. Monday, January 17th at Ebenezer Baptist Church across the city in Providence. Again, 4 p.m. at Ebenezer Baptist, Monday, January 17th. Now, I go to that service every year. I've invited you guys to come with me many times in past years. This year, an interesting development is that the Chorus of East Providence, which is led by our own Beth Armstrong, who is also looking like she's going to be our choir director for Christmas Eve, the Chorus of East Providence, it also contains many members of our church, is going to join with RPM Voices at the MLK service at Ebenezer Baptist. Again, Monday, January 17th at 4 p.m. They will be singing Lift Every Voice and Sing, and also Stand Up. Stand Up is the theme song from the recent film about Harriet Tubman called Harriet. The music director of the Chorus of East Providence, Beth Armstrong, the music director of RPM Voices, Delbert Collins, who's also the music director over at Bethel AME, worked together on the recent winter concert put on by the Chorus of East Providence, which included that song, Stand Up, by Cynthia Erivo, and they are going to be working together for this service. So that's kind of a pretty cool, beautiful, faithful journey that they're on together, and that we're inviting all of us to appreciate and participate in. So again, as before, please think about coming to the MLK service at Ebenezer Baptist at 4 p.m. on January 17th. This will be a whole nother level of cool to have a bunch of our people and our friends involved in the music for that Sunday. Lastly, there should have been a Connect and Reflect in your order of service, but there isn't. We have those small group sort of pop-up meetings that happen after worship to give us a chance to talk about the service and our own reflections and responses to it. That will be led by Rick Richards today, and it's going to be over in the next building in the panel parlor. Rick, do you want to stand up so people can see you easily? There's Rick. So if you'd like to connect and reflect about today's service and the themes of solstice and what's up for you with all of that, please join Rick over in the next building in the panel parlor. And that brings us to our benediction.
We close with more wisdom to guide our way from Stephanie Noble. Do not be afraid of the darkness, For in the depth of that very darkness comes a first glimpse of our own light, the pure inner light of love and knowing.
And as this light glows and grows, the darkness recedes. As we spread our light, we shed our fear and revel in the wonder of all that is revealed.
So do not rush the coming of the sun. Do not crave the lengthening of the day. Celebrate the darkness here and now, a time of richness and a time of joy.
Please join me in the unison words for our chalice extinguishing. We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.
Our closing song is sort of a solstice present from our staff team to the congregation. It's a song about coming together with family across differences of faith and values and renewing connections. And we know that lots of us are going to be going home to various places and connecting up with family and friends with whom there are bridges to be built and some gaps to be covered. And this song by Dar Williams reminds us that that can always happen. So we give it to you as a final solstice gift and best wishes for your solstice and Christmas, The Christians and the Pagans by Dar Williams.
Amber called her uncle, said we're up here for the holiday. Jane and I were having solstice, now we need a place to stay. And her Christ-loving uncle watched his wife hang Mary on a tree. He watched his son hang candy canes all made with red dye number 3. He told his niece, it's Christmas Eve, I know our life is not your style. She said, Christmas is like solstice, and we miss you, and it's been a while. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able. And just before the meal was served, hands were held and prayers were said, sending hope for peace on earth to all their gods and goddesses. The food was great, the tree plugged in, the meal had gone without a hitch, till Timmy turned to Amber and said, is it true that you're a witch? His mom jumped up and said, the pies are burning, and she hit the kitchen. And it was Jane who spoke. She said, it's true, your cousin's not a Christian. But we love trees, we love the snow, the friends we have, the world we share. And you find magic from your God, and we find magic everywhere. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able. And where does magic come from? I think magic's in the learning, 'cause now when Christians sit with pagans, only pumpkin pies are burning. When Amber tried to do the dishes, her aunt said, really, no, don't bother. Amber's uncle saw how Amber looked like Tim and like her father. He thought about his brother, how they hadn't spoken in a year. He thought he'd call him up and say, it's Christmas and your daughter's here. He thought of his father's sons and brothers, saw his own son tug his sleeve, saying, can I be a pagan? Dad said, we'll discuss it when they leave. So the Christians and the pagans sat together at the table, finding faith and common ground the best that they were able, lighting trees in darkness, learning new ways from the old, and making sense of history, and drawing warmth out from the cold.